Today we're going to be looking at Learning Target 5E, which is being able to calculate and create a line of best fit. Here we have a set of data. Now the data that you're going to use are the ones that you're going to come up with in your project. This data was taken from a past worksheet that I did with my students where they were looking at helicopter rides, so the price they charged per ride and the number of customers that would come based on that price. First thing you're going to do, keep in mind we're going to be using the calculator for all of this learning target. So on your screen you'll be able to see the same calculator that we have in class. Go ahead and turn it on. First thing you're going to do is you're going to hit the Stat button. And you're going to choose option number 1, which is to edit. And it's going to bring up this blank table. Now the L1 represents all of your X values, the price charged per ride. And L2 is where you're going to input your customers per day. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to start inputting my data, making sure that I hit enter after each piece of data. As I'm doing this, I'm going to let you know that on the next page, I'll break this down step by step and show you what the screen would look like after each step. So as I'm going through this, just watch the process and then we will look at those steps after. So again, just making sure I hit enter after each one. And there's my last piece of data. Now notice I made a mistake here because my two lines do not match up. So I need to go through and find where it is that I made a mistake, and I see it right here. I had 10 and 11, so I'm going to go ahead and make that 10, make that 11, and correct my mistake here before we move on. Always make sure that when you're done inputting data that your two lines match up. So notice how they both now end at the same point. It's important that you do that, otherwise you're going to end up with an error message later on in this process. So I've input my data correctly now. My two lines match up. My next step in order to get my equation for a line of best fit is I'm going to hit the Stat button again. I'm going to go over to the Calculate option, and I'm going to go down to option 4, which is linear regression. Now, this equation should look somewhat familiar to you. As we talked about in class, y equals mx plus b. For some reason with the calculator, they use the variable a to represent slope, but it means the same thing. And then I just need to pull up the two lists that I use. So if I go back into my lists here, notice it's L1 and L2. So here I'm going to use my blue second button and option 1, or the number 1, which is my L1, hit the comma, and then second L2, and this gives me my equation for a line of best fit. Now, when you write your equation, it's important that you take whatever this a value is and plug it in where the a belongs. Take this b value and plug it in where the b belongs. So my equation would be y equals negative 2.075, I've rounded to the thousandth, x plus 51.660. So here are those steps that I mentioned. Make sure, pause the video, make sure you write these down in your notebooks so that you have these steps available to you anytime that you're asked to create a line of best fit. As soon as you have this written down, go ahead and start playing the video again, because I will show you how to take this information and look at it in the graph on your calculator, and also how to take that information and transfer it onto your graph paper. So here we have our information again. We're just leaving off right where we left off. I'm going to start by taking this equation and I'm going to plug it into my y equals. So I'm going to hit the y equals button, and I've got my y equals, and it's negative 2.056. Let me make sure that's correct. Nope, negative 2.075. Sorry about that. Negative 2.075x is right here by the alpha button, plus 51.660, I believe. Let me make sure that's correct. Yep. So I've got my equation plugged in now. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go up to where it says stat plot. So I'm going to hit second and y equals, and I need to turn one of these stat plots on. So I'm just going to choose the first one and see where it's flashing on. I'm going to go ahead and hit enter. I'm going to go over here to zoom, and I want to zoom in on the stats that I've created. So I'm going to hit that button, and notice I've got all these data points now. Those are all the points that I inputted from this table. That line that goes through is our line of best fit. Now, in terms of getting it onto your graph paper, I would recommend utilizing the table. So I'm just going to hit second and graph, which brings up my table. Now notice none of these points are super great to plot, but choose some ones that are real close to the halves, the quarters, things that you could potentially input relatively easy. So I could do 0 and 51 and a little over a half, 2 and 47 a little over a half, and so on as I'm plotting my points and creating that line of best fit. 8 and 35. So just use the ones that are real close to whole numbers to kind of help you in your graphing piece. So once again, here is the steps for looking at that line of best fit and how to find that table of values. Again, I would recommend getting this into your notebook as you're going to be utilizing this as you're working through your project. If you have any questions, please feel free to stop Mr. Dunn or myself. We can help you work through this process. Good luck on the rest of your project.